I've just come out of the screening of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. So I'm just going to put my thoughts down on video as well as writing a review. I'm recording this in a very cheap hotel room, and I should forewarn you that the people on that side of the wall, I don't think they're watching telly, so apologies if you hear any other noises coming. That it's not me. So, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. We're told in the build-up to this that this is going to be the last Mission Impossible film, or certainly the final outing for Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt. He's been playing Ethan Hunt since the 1990s in Brian De Palma's original Mission Impossible movie, which I absolutely love. And so we're kind of a few minutes in to The Final Reckoning, where we see our hero for the first time, and it's Tom Cruise. He's billed as playing the death-defying Ethan Hunt one last time. He's also reunited for a fifth movie and a fourth in this saga with writer-director Christopher McQuarrie. They've done the last four Mission Impossible films together. McQuarrie shares screenplay duties here with Eric Jendresen. And so Cruise steps into the frame. He's every inch the movie star. And, by this stage, 7 films have got us this far. And we've had opening sequences where we've seen masks being ripped off. There was one where Cruise is clinging to a plane as it takes off. What could McQuarrie and Tom Cruise have served up to kick off The Final Reckoning, the big swan song for this franchise? The answer is a VHS tape. A video cassette thoughtfully cut together by Angela Bassett's President of the United States. And this tape, it doesn't just recap the plot that's got us here, but it also throws in umpteen clips of the previous films in the saga. So I know if you're still irritated that Emilio Estevez didn't get much screen time in the original Mission Impossible, don't worry, he's going to get an extra residual here. You'll get a bit of a flashback. Can't remember a set piece from one of the earlier films? Angela's compiled them for you. They're all on the tape. And so you get Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt just looking puzzled, and understandably so, as to why he's being told and shown all of this, and then the tape self-destructs in 5 seconds. Just like, what? Okay. But if you're, I don't know, if you're the kind of person who occasionally gets to the cinema late, I mean, obviously I'm not endorsing this or anything, but sometimes we arrive late, matters out of our hand. All I can say is, don't worry. If you miss Angela Bassett telling you the plot and showing you all the clips, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning doesn't just do this once across what looks to be a daunting 170-minute running time. The film is happy to flash back to other movies in the franchise with some regularity. And if needed, it'll just sit the characters back down again and get them to explain all of this stuff. I mean, to a degree as well, this is needed. So the previous film in the series was originally called Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. This is supposed to be Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 2, but Part 1 didn't do great guns at the box office, and so Paramount has rebadged Dead Reckoning as just that, Dead Reckoning, and this is now The Final Reckoning. That notwithstanding, I'm going to spoil alike. I'd just say Dead Reckoning Part 1 ended on a moment that was due to be picked up here. And so this film, I mean, Dead Reckoning does directly lead really into The Final Reckoning, just with the plot getting more and more convoluted. And so the basic setup is we're about a month has passed. The villainous Gabriel, that's Isai Morales coming back, is on the loose. There's an AI antagonist. The entity is going to destroy everything. And, I mean, AI as a movie villain just seems to work, doesn't it? And so, but the stakes, and we're reminded of them so many times, are massive. I mean, if you want a contrast, in the last film, there's a bit towards the end where they just throw chip fat at Tom Cruise. Here, he's bonked on the head by what I presume to be a nuclear weapon. And just like the contrast between those two wasn't lost on me. We keep being told in dialogue as to like how much we're all in the shit. Every living soul on earth will die, we're sternly told. And at one point, we get this kind of airport departure board, which just looks like a departure board of nuclear weapons waiting to be fired. We also get the most photographed DEFCON counter on screen, I'd suggest, since 1983's War Games. A big world map, increasingly filled with red as well. I mean, the whole thing is just going to pop. Now, you might not unreasonably be wondering why we're 5 minutes into this, and we've not really got to the film itself, but this is sort of reflective of the problem. Because, I mean, do you remember the last Lord of the Rings film, Return of the King? And the criticism aimed at that was it had umpteen endings. The Final Reckoning has the opposite problem. It has umpteen beginnings, an endless cycle of them. And during the prolonged first movement of the film, you've got characters who are just spouting dialogue that feels like it's written for the trailer. You get long dormant threads from previous movies that are excavated. And, Marvel films are criticised for their cross-referencing and the requirement to have foreknowledge of what's gone before. I would just say on this one, Marvel boss Kevin Feige, he's just off the hook for a bit after The Final Reckoning. So, eventually, after sweeping the World Movie Plot Explaining Awards, things finally, and it's nearly an hour must have gone by this point. I didn't timestamp it, but it felt that. Things finally get moving. And so going plot light again, not really explaining why some galloping horses suddenly appear in an AI vision of the future. We get Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise. We get Simon Pegg's Benji, Ving Rhames' Luther, Hayley Atwell's Grace, Greg Tarzan Davis' Degas, Pom Clementif's Paris. This is our IMF Mission Impossible team as the last line of resistance, fighting the entity, which she's trying to, hello Terminator 2, engineer nuclear war and kill us all. That's the stakes. And so it's around this point, after kind of hammering it quite a lot and in quite a somber way for a long time, that the film reminds us why so many of us have followed these movies for the last 3 decades. Because when we finally get to the first key mission for the team, it's great. And how do I put it? It sees them fixated on a submarine and trying to get Ethan Hunt onto it. And it's here that the screenplay brings back that deft humour and the wit that have been lacking to this point. It does that thing of laying out the peril, just how difficult it is. And then the trump card is bringing in Tramell Tillman in a scene-stealing role as well. And then, it's not the only time it does something like so with such levity and fun to it. Later on we head to a colder climate for a separate sequence, and that joyful playfulness of Mission Impossible is bursting through. Christopher McQuarrie as well, as a director and also as co-writer, of course, has the confidence, once he gets going, to take dialogue away from stretches. He's that confident, and rightly so, in some of his set pieces. He delivers another terrific aerial-based sequence later on in the film as well. And while I'd suggest, just comparing it to the last one, there's nothing quite as tense as the chase through Abu Dhabi Airport in Dead Reckoning, which I thought was great. There are some real standout moments here, proper big screen moments. However, there's also gravity to consider. Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, bafflingly just keeps getting pulled back to earth by this inexhaustible desire to keep explaining things or throw in a reference or try to have another run at describing the ever complicated plot. A lot of these films dial down at some point to a computer disc or something like that, and they just try and dress it up. Nothing on the scale I'd suggest of what we get here. It didn't have to be like this. Christopher McQuarrie was one of the writers and was a creative influence on Joseph Kosinski's Top Gun Maverick, also starring Tom Cruise. But if you remember Top Gun Maverick, the mission was really laid out properly. The difficulty of the mission was established. If you look at to go back to one of the least liked Mission Impossible films, Mission Impossible 3, even in that, the build-up, here is the explanation of what we're going to do, why it's difficult, how we execute it. And so the difficulty was established and it made sense. It was explained to an audience in, a well-worked way. Here, not so much. And it's just, it's hard to explain just the complexities of it. Go back to Mission Impossible Fallout. That plot was not without complexities. But I tell you, it's Fisher Price compared to what you have to wrap your head around here. And again, it's all the odder given that most of these films boil down to some degree to computer data. There's also internal logic and plausibility that suffers, I think, with The Final Reckoning, because there's a moment where the movie star moment where the shirt comes off. I'm not going to do it. I think they might be doing it there. And I'm thinking not even Tom Cruise could survive what he has to go through in a particular sequence where his shirt comes off. And, he would just die. Even within the heightened parameters of the film, and we accept that to a degree, it just doesn't hold water. It just feels like it's cheating. And, you just look at it and just go, no way. And I guess part of the problem here, the ultimate frustration, is the bar of this franchise has previously been set so high. I loved the first film. The second one, third one, all right, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're all at least 4-star movies. I don't think Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is the weakest in the saga, but I do think it is the weakest. Tom Cruise as an actor and Christopher McQuarrie as a director of the 5 films. Don't forget that there's a Jack Reacher movie as well. It is, it's 5th place out of those 5, and I don't think it's giving 4th place a lot of competition either. And I just wonder, had this not been the last film, had it been like the midpoint in the series, then maybe they wouldn't have had the need to treat this so much as a victory lap and lay in so much exposition. Maybe there'd be a version then of The Final Reckoning that's half an hour shorter, possibly 40 minutes, a lot tighter. Makes a bit more sense that, this whole opening hour really just gels together better. I don't know if you remember, there's a Disney animated film, Wish, which was carrying, it's only a couple of years ago, it's not a great film, but it was carrying this burden of being the 100th anniversary Disney animated film. And I always thought, if you took that off it and just actually got back to the core story of it, Wish would have been a better film. In the case of The Final Reckoning, because it's doing this victory lap, I just think it pulls it down. And so it is the frustration. You just wonder, could there have been a bit more levity, a bit more wit, a bit more fun to it? There's certainly spectacle, no argument there. But, this is what we have. We have a 170-minute film that feels it, really. It's led by a movie star in his element and a supporting cast who get different levels of shrift from it. Some fare a lot better than others. But I guess, just pulling it back down to a sentence, I think it could have used more of the ethos of the chip fat and less of the world-ending nuclear weapon stuff. I think if we're making blockbuster movies in the future, there you go. More chip fat, please. And stop telling us the stakes are so high and everything's going to end. Just give us something we can get our teeth into. Or at the very least, just give us a portion of chips.